Hi, welcome back to the Agile Commute. Thanks for joining us on the ride. John, how are you doing? Welcome back.
I am great.
That's good. We have our first episode published at this point. Yikes. Scary.
I know. Yeah. It's fine though. I mean, we fail fast, right? That's what Agile's all about.
Yeah, our first iteration was a little rough, but that's okay. Here for iteration number 2, and I have a really hot start for us.
You usually do, so they're always good.
Yeah. So I frequently call my mom while I'm driving because I have a long commute. No pun intended. But when I'm driving, I'll often call a friend, call my mom, whatever. And I was talking to her about this controversy at work where my customers are noticing that a lot of the teams and the organizations are starting to slip on their committed deliveries. Like teams were doing pretty well. They were saying, oh, we can deliver these 10 things. And then they were pretty close to delivering those 10. But now people are starting to notice that that's not happening anymore. And so I was being questioned about whether or not my team was estimating correctly or not. And is this the right size? Are you sure you're not overcommitting yourselves? And I was like, yo, back up. We are doing fine. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
So they were doing commitments and then now they're not, which,
Well, we are doing commitments, but we're just not meeting them.
Yeah, but you were before. I've been in situations like this before too. So who was asking what's going on and who made the suggestion that it was about planning?
Yeah, so I'm technically at a multi-team level, I'm scrum mastering for them, and this is sort of like the scrum master above me. I won't say specific terms because they're doing some version of, scaled agile, but basically the chief scrum master was sort of asking all of the scrum masters what was going on. And I was like, well, our customers are just kind of pushing us to say that we can do things even when we tell them that we can't. So they're like, hey, we need you to do these 10 things. And then we go back to them and say, hey, we estimated these and we can only do maybe 5.
Mm-hmm.
And then the customer's like, well, actually, could you do all 10 though? That would be awesome. And then I say to them, hey, do you remember I said we can't do that? And then they're like, hey, I don't care. Do them.
Oh, yeah.
It's so fun. But I got really defensive, as I'm sure you could imagine, because they're sitting here questioning my ability and my team's ability to estimate our work. And I'm like, no. Thank you for asking, but please go away. That's not the problem. And I do think that there are things that my team can do better. And I think that there are ways that we can make ourselves more predictable. But in the grand scheme of things with the interrogation, it wasn't that intense. Sorry. It wasn't really an interrogation. But I didn't really like that they were questioning the teams rather than looking upward at what's going on with leadership. And so all of that to say, that was kind of what was going on. And I was telling my mom about this. And she was like, well, I thought Agile was supposed to solve all these problems. Why do you have these problems if you think Agile's so amazing? I was so offended.
But you gotta admit though, it's a fair question, right?
I know.
We I'm gung ho. I drank the Kool-Aid. I just never looked back, even in the face of all its criticism. But that's a pretty common criticism. And at first, yeah, I was offended too. But over time, if you think of it from the teams that we're coaching and the organizations that we're coaching's perspective, especially when performance drops, they're like, well, I guess this stuff doesn't work then, does it? And they sound exactly like that, by the way.
Yeah, and we had a really intense conversation about this because I did mention that she's done some Agile-y type things, and we talk all the time, so she knows a bit about Agile and my career and whatever. But she was like, yeah, I thought this was just supposed to solve all the problems. And she said that she has been to plenty of training classes in her lifetime that are related to Agile. And she was worked up. She was like, it makes me so annoyed when I go into these classes and these instructors are just like, oh, well, Agile is the most amazing thing ever. It's the panacea. It cures everything. It's going to just fix all of your problems and everyone should do it. And then you go into the real world and you try to do it, and then it oftentimes doesn't work. For a variety of reasons, which we can get into. But she was just kind of being annoyed at the fact that these trainers in these classes she's been to, she feels like they're lying or not giving the full picture as to how to make it work. They're just like, splash Agile onto your canvas and you're ready to rock and roll. And she's like, but that's not true, obviously, because Casey, am a coach. And I have to help these things happen. And she's like, they make it just seem like the cure-all to everything. And it doesn't do that. And then people get annoyed when they see that it doesn't work. And then they lose the faith that it can work. That makes sense? Yeah. That was a little confusing.
Guilty as charged. I have done that.
What?
Yeah. When I was first starting out doing a training for teams and stuff, like on fundamentals and Scrum and all that, I would describe it as like a utopian existence. It just makes sense. It's all common sense in practice. Everything is really good. It'll make life better. There's no downside. Like I didn't even consider the downsides. And I try to do it a little differently these days. But the thing that I realized was that I wasn't stating upfront assumptions, and those assumptions are like, they have to do with the environment where the team is. And included in that environment, management and leadership of the organization is not included in my, at least in the beginning of my trainings. I would just focus on the team and team interactions and interpersonal interactions between teammates, and then even team to team interactions in a scaled environment. But I never really trained until recently on the cultural aspects of it. I don't know if you're focusing on that these days or not, but I think that's a huge component, and that's has some more to do with leadership and management.
Well, yeah, and there have been a lot of instances. I mean, even what we talked about in the last episode, that I knew a lot of people who knew the mechanics. And even in my current job, a lot of people know the mechanics, but they don't really seem to get it. And I think that really hurts things. I mean, duh, right? Like half of or maybe more than half the battle is the cultural aspect. I mean, it's easy to memorize step 1, step 2, step 3. It's much harder to completely kind of embody the full mindset that has to go with it. And my mom was, I'm saying arguing, but it was just a heated discussion. But she and I were arguing back and forth about the fact that she's like, well, if Agile is so rooted in this cultural change and we can't figure out how to make people change, is it even any better than Agile? So I guess I'll ask you that question of what she posed to me, and then I can obviously share what I said. But this is what she said to me. She was like, well, if you can't change people, then what's the point of even bothering? And isn't it at Waterfall just as good?
I don't know how you're going to feel about my answer to that question, but she has a point. Let's go back to one program that you and I were coaches on. It was a large program of, multiple teams in a division with 3 different divisions, and we're all trying to be unified and stuff. So it's perfect environment for scaled structurally. We were coaching. I would say that we had varying levels of success depending on what area we were coaching in, what teams and what divisions. But really at the top, they were having none of it. They're like, you go coach the teams and becoming better. And essentially, I think the message was, they're messed up, gonna fix them. And by them, they were talking about the teams. And then they never really were receptive or wanted to change or wanted to do anything differently or wanted to think about anything differently, which is what was required. And then ultimately, you and I left. And I would argue we left 6 months too late, because what it did for us was it reduced our effectiveness as coaches because they didn't want to change. And so no matter what we would do, it really kind of didn't matter. They were just going to do the same thing they were doing before, and it became like cargo cult. They were just going through the motions.
Cargo cult?
Yeah, so that goes back to World War II when we set up these bases in remote islands in the Pacific, and the locals were helping us set up these airfields and stuff. And we would have planes come in like every day. And then once the war was over, we like exited and departed. And because we were going in there every day, we were like boosting their economy and morale. And they wanted us to come back. So what they did was they constructed kind of fake air towers, and they swept the runway with brooms and stuff. They set up everything to look like it's an airfield, but the U.S. planes never came back. Those are cargo transport hubs, and that's why they call it cargo quote. That's where it came from. I don't know if I described that accurately, but that's kind of where it came from.
Well, I learned something. But what I told my mom is that I think that, yes, I think she has a point. I think it's a little bit too black and white of a point, like too just one way or the other. I think that waterfall has a place in certain types of projects and industries, and that's great. I do think that even with bad leadership or people who aren't completely bought in, I do even think the mechanics of Agile will still win over waterfall for other like types of projects where it makes more sense. I have no data to back that up. That's just my personal opinion.
I want to say yes, I agree, but I don't know. I still think the human capacity to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory is so overpowering that I think you can even mess that up if you just do the mechanics of, say, Scrum.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think any project can be messed up for a variety of reasons, but like if you have a moderately okay situation for I'm just going to pick on software because that's like the one that everyone says, oh, you should do Agile, whatever. Like for a software project, if you're doing iterations and you're doing retrospectives and you're consistently trying to improve and you do things in more of an incremental fashion rather than do all of the development and then you do all of the testing and then you deliver, I still think you'll wind up having a more usable product than if you use Agile than if you were to do truly like waterfall, right? Where you do, oh, here we're going to do all the business analytics up front and write every single requirement. And then 2 years later, you deliver on those requirements that definitely have changed in between and you've never reassessed them. I think that would put you in a worse position. And if you have equally not great leadership in both of those scenarios, of the waterfall scenario and the Agile scenario, I still think you'll come out on top in the Agile scenario.
Interesting.
Because you're consistently assessing the requirements and you're not committing to let's say 1,000 requirements up front that you're delivering at the end. And if it takes you 2 years to do, those requirements will have changed. Almost certainly. Like the landscape of things in 2 years could look completely different. So at least in the Agile scenario, if you have crummy leadership and people aren't totally bought in, and you have crummy leadership and people aren't bought in waterfall, like either way, you're going to have those problems. But at least in the Agile, scenario here, you're incrementally delivering and you're reassessing the requirements and shifting and not committing yourself to the original 1,000. I still think that's probably better.
Ooh.
Right?
Devil's advocate on that, I would say it would definitely get you more incremental deliveries. You'll deliver more. The other side of that is I'm not sure the feedback part would happen if you don't have good leadership and a proper mindset and a growth mindset there. Because if you have a fixed mindset where, this is the answer, it's the right answer. Why are you questioning me? Why are we doing these frequent deliveries? Do what I said 6 months ago and just keep doing that thing and drive toward that. Why are you giving me these status updates? Why are you deploying frequently? Right? I mean, it's like, well, good. You're doing what I told you you needed to do. So keep doing what I told you what you needed to do 6 months, 1 year ago, all that.
But then that's basically waterfall. I mean, like, again, if the person is following the mechanics and isn't bought in, that means that person is, again, this is a probably better scenario than most people are in, but that person's showing up to, let's say, a sprint review and they're like, this is dumb, but they sit there and then they leave. Well, devil's advocate to your devil's advocate to my I don't even know at this point.
Is that an angel's advocate? Two devils equal an angel?
Yeah, I don't know. But in my brain, I'm thinking about my actual reality, which is you and I have both been in these scenarios where we have been either coaches or scrum masters or product owners or agile champions on these teams in organizations where the leadership is not good. But you and I don't want to sound conceited, but you and I care and we have the mindset and we know the mechanics and we have it culturally built into us now. And we know how to help teams at the team level. and we know how to kind of work around some of the leadership stuff. Not in all scenarios.
That's funny. I don't want to sound conceited, but
No. I'm just saying that, like, you and I have been in the scenarios where leadership's bad.
mm-hmm.
Like, let's just be honest about that. They're not bought in. They don't really care.
Well, they're
but
reactive.
We've managed to help. Yeah, but like you and I have managed to help teams do better despite the leadership, and like still be able to do a lot of the mechanics, get a couple people to become new Agile champions despite the leadership being crummy. And so in my mind, I'm thinking like, well, even if the leadership is crummy and you have a team and you're working with them or multiple teams, I still think you wind up being better off than in Wonderful. For the projects where it makes sense, that's the big asterisk, right? Obviously, there's some projects that are going to continue doing Waterfall and that makes sense for them. But the projects where you probably should be doing Agile, I still think you're better off than just being like, well, our leadership's bad, so may as well just do Waterfall. I think you should try and do things iteratively and maybe not fully committed to all 12 principles, but I still think there's benefit.
Oh, it's true. Yeah, that's true. I agree that it's always worth trying. And then one of the things that always makes a difference is you got to find those champions. If you have like 3 teams and the organization's trying to go Agile and they're trying to do like Scrum, and there's not a single champion across the 3 teams, and the leadership of the organization is just not on board, nor do they care. That's not a good recipe for even small success or incremental success. But, the times when, I've coached and you've coached and we've coached, we're always found a champion. But I tell you what, I can think of some teams where there's no champions there. They were beaten down into submission. Their automatons are like, just tell me what I got to do. I'm just going to come into work and do it. And again, they sound like that. It's like, I don't want to tell you what to do because that's not how I operate. So we're just going to have a conversation and nothing's going to happen. So I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. It's worth it, but you got to have champions.
Yeah. I know this person who, I'm not going to like name names, but there is a person that I know who I think their whole personality is confused. There's so many parts that I think are inclined to do or like be on an Agile team where they like a lot of communication, and that's great. But they can't make their own decisions and they need to be told what to do. And I have on many occasions tried to get this person to choose amongst options, or like, what do you think we should do? And this person literally can't operate unless they're told what to do. And I don't feel like that person will ever really be necessarily an Agile champion in the way you and I probably would need them to be. But yeah, I mean, like, just put all those people on a project where they have a command and control leader and they'll just be told what to do and they'll probably be happy. And like, that's fine. I'm not trying to say that's a bad thing. Like, if people like to be told what to do, or they don't like to make decisions, or they don't want to be like, I don't know. I was going to say something mean. Maybe I shouldn't say that.
It's just a matter of time. It's just a matter of time before you start sounding mean. It's cool. Just go ahead and rip the Band-Aid off and just...
Yeah. I'm trying to like create this illusion for our listeners that maybe there's hope that I'm not a terrible person, but yeah, it'll happen sooner or later.
It'll happen sooner or later.
But the only thing I was trying to say is that not everybody needs to, like, I'm not gonna sit here, and I don't think you're gonna sit here and be like, everybody needs to go to Agile because it's the best thing ever, and everyone needs to like, if you don't like to do that, then go work on a team that doesn't have that. Like, that's fine. Like I said, there are projects where Agile probably doesn't really make the most sense. I think my bias is, I'm like, well, you could use these principles on anything, but I do acknowledge that there are probably some where it doesn't make sense, or it would be exponentially harder to try and change. And it probably wouldn't even give you that much in return. But yeah, I just thought that was so interesting that she started to challenge that. And I did, like I said, I did get defensive. I started to get really upset because I'm like, it feels like you're questioning my literal entire career. That doesn't feel great.
Oh, I still think there's going to always be people that question a career that's built off soft skills and stuff like coaching and even to some extent product ownering, to quote you, a Caseyism there. I think it's still worth a shot. For those of you listeners out there that are just wondering if, like, did I even choose the right thing to do? This is, I'm meeting so much resistance and stuff. No, it's still worth it, because when it is successful, man, is it awesome? It's totally cool.
Okay, Mr. Utopia, calm down.
I wanted to shift back to something that you said before, and I have a question for you, Casey. Is there a personality type that cannot be agile? Because you mentioned this person who just wants to be told what to do and doesn't want to think outside the box and is not innovative and is just like, I want to come into work, clock in, clock out, that's it. We want to be inclusive, right? But can we be 100% inclusive?
Yeah, so I don't think there's really an answer that any of us really know.
I have an answer.
I just want to preface what I'm going to say. Okay, I don't think we fully understand the human psyche to give an accurate, full answer. That's all I'm saying.
What kind of psyche was that?
I don't even remember the words that came out of my mouth. So I don't know.
The human psyche?
Human.
Oh, okay.
No, human. Okay. There's an H.
I thought you said human.
Ew, no.
I thought it was going to be another Force situation.
No.
Because we all know
human with an H. No, back me up on this. We're cutting all of this out. It's being cut. I've decided.
Back me up on this. Listeners.
We're not gonna be making fun.
Forest or forest?
I'm not gonna sit here and take this abuse. Okay. Anyway,
back to personality types. Is Agile truly inclusive, or is there a little bit of exclusivity into certain personality types?
So for Agile itself, I want to believe that anybody could thrive in an Agile environment if they wanted to. However, big however, I don't think that it's for everyone. And that's okay, that's fine, but I don't think it's for everyone, because I do think that there are a lot of people who either just want to be told what to do, they just want to come in, do some stuff, clock out, like they just don't really care that much. Or some people they're content, I'll say. They're content with where they are and they don't necessarily feel like things need to change. And Agile is built on the idea that you're going to be changing. I mean, change is like built into the whole thing. And if you don't really care about making changes, or it's not a priority for you, or you think it's too scary or not worth it, then yeah, I mean, I would say it's not really probably the best place for you. Oh, here's another good one. Let's take a leader who is probably in desperate need of therapy because they have an extreme, intense desire to be in control.
That's what I was thinking, as it's not totally inclusive.
And if this person feels like they need to be a dictator for whatever unresolved personal reasons that they have, I'm being so mean, but like I truly feel that way, right? Like if you are behaving in a way where you feel like you have to be in control and or putting people down, I feel like that means you have some unresolved stuff you need to work through. And that's like an outside of the workplace activity. And so if people don't work through that and they continue to feel the need to be command and control, put other people down, use fear to intimidate others, this is not the place for you. Agile is not, don't join an Agile organization, please, for everyone else's sake.
I would actually go further, and I would say for the good of the organization, team, or whoever that person might be, if someone were heavy on what I'll say, the controlling part of their reactive personality, and they let that take over, and they are, demeaning, they are headstrong, they're trying to get stuff done, that will bring down the performance of the entire team or organization. So that person, their management and leadership should convince or coerce them to move on. It will bring down the whole organization. So the people who are like that, in my experience, they don't know the effect that they're having on other people. They may not know they're making the lives of everyone around them miserable. And it might even be worse than that. They might have gotten to where they were because they were like that. They got stuff done. And their managers, like, oh, this we can count on this person because they will, walk all over other people. They don't see that. They don't see that they're walking all over other people in order to accomplish the task. And the task is the most important thing, and doing it, quote, right, and efficient and all that. And if you can't do it, I'm going to do it myself. Why is it that I have to do everything around here? I'm alone. I'm the victim. That's usually their mentality, because everyone's incompetent except for you. That's the general vibe I get from those that have that, reactive tendency to be in control and all that stuff. So you're right. They don't know. And there's a lot of work they have to do on their end. And between the state they're in now and the enlightened creative state that they need to be, all that time, they're going to be hurting other people. And that is what I don't like.
I have a devil's advocate for you.
What's your devil's advocate?
Okay, well, my devil's advocate is that, don't you think that those people would also be bad in a waterfall organization? Do you think they would be equally detrimental?
No, I don't.
Why?
Because it's plan driven, and that means that there's a right answer, and all you have to do is drive to that plan, and then that's it. And if you have a number of command and control people in a waterfall organization, what's going to happen is it's going to eventually comprise of people who are in charge, that want to be in charge, that have a particular way of doing things, and then passive people who do the things and just want to come into work to be told what to do. You're just going to have those two personality types, and it will work. It's akin to, like, boss, master, and then kind of like submissive servants. And that works. So you'll have lords and you'll have peasant servants, and it works,
I just feel like the person that you described sounds way more toxic than just simply wanting to be command and control, which is why I was wondering if it would be equally as bad,
Oh, you mean like they let that part of them control who they are and not be in charge of that part of them?
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess that might work. Yeah, it could work.
I don't know, dude. I'm too burnt out to be dealing with people with that kind of personality. I think it's interesting, though, because when we first met, I was very early on in my career, and I think that I was definitely more in the command and control zone side of things.
Where?
And
I only say that because I guarantee you there are some listeners out there that, probably resonated when I said phrases like, well, everyone around me is an idiot. They don't know how to do things right, so I have to do everything myself.
That resonates with me.
It's okay. It's okay to have that feeling. That feeling cannot take over everything. You need to be in control of it, and that's all. But keep going with what you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like I'm the poster child for what you're not really supposed to be as a coach, and yet I am a coach, so you can do it too, folks. It's possible. But no, I mean, I do have those feelings on a every other day basis, but I at least can recognize them and assess them and make a determination if that is reality or not, and then change my behavior based on that, which is why when I originally said I hope that everybody can operate in this environment, and I would like to think that everybody can, because I think, well, and again, I think this is a little naive and probably too optimistic, which coming from me is a shocker, I know. But I mean, if I can change, why can other people not change?
Yeah, that's...
I know that's very dumb and silly, but...
The key thing that you said there was you can, any personality type can be in an agile organization. And then what you described is essentially a degree of emotional intelligence to the extent that you are self-aware, and then you are attempting self-control. And in addition to that...
Attempting.
I was very careful with that word. Yeah. Attempting self-control. I mean, it's never going to be perfect. And then... The reason why you do it, and you didn't explicitly say this, I don't think, and it's because of your effect on those around you. So that's the external part of emotional intelligence. So long as the people on the team or in the organization have some degree of emotional intelligence and is working on it, I agree with you. You can be whatever personality type, because that shows a growth mindset and that you're not stuck. and that you are gonna be better because you're working on it. But if you don't, then
I would love to hear if I'm sure we have like 2 people listening, which are probably both my parents. Kidding, sort of kidding. No, but I would be curious to know if people had opinions about like what are the core traits that make it easy for people to be in agile organizations. I mean, you and I you listed them and I agree with those, but I don't know. I just think it's so fascinating because everyone's just in their own little world. And for me, even though I think that I have those natural tendencies, the stuff that you described as far as me wanting to be different and me like making steps to change and like the emotional intelligence thing, like, again, I feel like I sound so naive and silly of like, well, I guess there are people out there that just don't have those things or don't want those things. And I mean, I guess that's true. I'm just being optimistic. Like, why wouldn't you want to be better as a person? I don't know.
Oh, because it's easier not to be. I'll give you some examples.
Okay.
This is in an organization that is actually better than the average bear in terms of culture and practices and stuff. And even in this organization, there's a particular leader that has said the phrase, perception is reality. And it was said in a debate on whether or not something did in fact happen or whether or not something will become, I forgot what it was, but this is what we can expect, or this is what actually happened versus, what some people perceive. And the phrase was thrown out to make a point. Perception is reality. Like,
wait, didn't you have some sort of saying of like reality is whatever it is you think it is? What was the thing you used to say?
Yeah. So I don't know what the exact phrase is, but ground truth is hardly ever known. You can't collect that kind of data. There's just too much. And people see the world through their own biases. So there's an author, I think her name is Anaya Nin, that said, we don't see the world as it is, we see the world as we are. I think it's pretty accurate. So we see the world from our standpoint, and it's never ground truth. And we each see that. So there's a little bit of our reality is perception. So there's truth in the phrase, but the way that he said it was, well, it doesn't matter what the truth is. Perception's reality. So if I'm perceiving it this way, then that's the truth.
Well, it's his reality.
That's his reality, yeah. The reason why I don't like it is when said like that in situations like that, well, perception's reality. It's akin to, well, if it walks like a duck and it talks like a duck. What I really want to say to anybody who says that is, do we have any hunters in the room? Because they're experts in making things walk and talk like a duck right before they shoot it. Because it's not a duck, it's the hunter's decoy.
Oh my God.
So I know I'm going a little over the top on that.
I thought you were going to be like, oh, if there's ducks in the room, obviously there's bread. And then you went into, I don't know why that's where my brain went, like feeding the ducks. And then you were talking about, oh, okay, that took a turn.
But no, going back to my point of like perception's reality. So if you adopt that perception is reality, then if you perceive something to be a certain way, well, that's reality then. That I've decided that that's what I perceive, that's reality. So I'm not going to do anything to find out. I'm not even going to ask a question. Like if it walks like a duck and it talks like a duck, oh, my perception is it's a duck. But if I took 5 seconds and asked, hey, are you a duck? And the response would be, no, I am not a duck.
Quack.
That took 5 seconds. And then you for sure said, oh, no, you're not a duck. You're going to try to shoot me. So I'm now going to flee. Going with my analogy from before.
Oh, boy.
It took 5 seconds to get to the truth, closer to the truth, I'll say. But if you adopt the mentality that perception is reality, you will very quickly make assumptions, which leads to surrendering to your biases, which leads to prejudicial treatment of some experiences that you had in the past. So it kind of leads to a bad place, in my opinion. There's also other phrases that this particular individual would say. He would say stuff like, well, I'm so and so years old, I've been around the block, I have all this, I have all this experience. It's like, does that mean you're done learning? I don't are you not open to any new experiences? What's good? You're not, I guess you're not going to change your mind.
That's such a pet peeve. I hate when people do that. And I noticed that I'm starting to do that a little bit, just as far as the fact that I have a decent amount of experience. And so I do throw in my experience, like with these other types of things. And I do try and rely on that a little bit since I do have that to rely on.
Yeah.
But I hate when people are like, well, I've been doing this for 35 years, so obviously I know. And it's like, do you though?
Or, yeah.
Do you know?
Like, that's interesting. So have you ever encountered another way of doing things? Like, I'm curious now.
Yeah.
Like, so did you encounter
And
another way of doing things, and then you compared it and you went this other way because that was better? I mean, if so, I'm curious about that, because maybe there is something that I'm not
yeah.
aware of that could be better. That's cool.
Yeah, well, oh gosh, I know we don't really have that much time left, but when I started doing coaching, I was pretty young. And to be a coach and eventually to be an enterprise coach when you're really young and also female.
Are you female?
That was kind
I
of
noticed.
Yeah.
I don't really see age, sex, or race at all.
Yeah, right, totally. Well, I do identify as a female, so there we go. But like when I was starting out doing coaching, where you basically have to help other organizations be better, I don't feel like a lot of people took me seriously because I didn't have the age and experience that I guess that they had of all of their year. And I'm like, okay, but you're doing like database engineering. I'm here to coach human beings and change their habits. Like, these are two completely different things. And so a lot of people, I felt like, either didn't take me seriously or didn't want to listen, which honestly, even if I was 1,000 years old, these people probably wouldn't have listened anyway. But I just, for me, when you said when people do that, it is a personal pet peeve. And I promised myself when I was younger that I wouldn't do that to people, and that I would give people of all ages, experiences, like anything, the opportunity to shine or to have an idea. Like, you never know. Like, someone who's been in the organization for 100 years could have a cool idea. Someone who's been there for 30 minutes could have a cool idea. Like, you don't know. And so
tell it, sister.
Sorry. I got so frustrated when you said, I got so triggered when you said that.
I even said this on my very first Scrum team. I told myself this first, and then I started telling people. I think it was in planning poker. Why does everyone have to vote? They're just brand new. They're just out of college. What do they know? I'm like, well, each person brings their different perspective. And just because we've been around for like 10 years as a team, and then we get a new person on the team that's just out of college, does not mean that they can't think of a good idea. They might be seeing things from a different perspective that we don't see, especially if they haven't been on the team. So they need to have a vote in on how complex something might be.
Yeah, unbiased, third party, fresh eyes in the situation. My only caveat, and I have a lot of pet peeves. We should eventually make a list, probably like 400 things. No, but I don't like when people come in and just immediately start trying to change things. I do think that people have a lot of really good ideas when they come in as a third party, but it's so common for people to come in and not understand why things are the way they are and not respecting the current situation and just plowing through and just being like, well, you guys suck and you got to do things differently. And I know all the things. And I'm like, okay, but you also don't know the 3 months ago when this thing happened, which is why we have to do it this way right now until, X, Y, and Z happens. It's just, that type of thing just is so annoying. And I have to catch myself. Like, when I go into a new organization as a coach, I'm trying to be very mindful and just do a lot of observing. And I try to not be judgmental. Sometimes I'm sure it slips in because I judge everything all the time. I'm a great person, obviously. That was a joke. I'm a terrible person. But like, I try to consciously not do that. And you and I know a coach in particular who will not be named at all, who goes into organizations and belittles teams because they're not doing things the way that he believes that they should be.
Oh,
I'm like,
I think
good
I know
sir,
who you're
please
talking
stop
about,
being a coach.
but...
Don't be a coach. Yeah, I'll text you afterwards. We're not naming him here.
Oh,
you know exactly who I'm talking about.
Well, there we go. You just said it.
And I'm
said
like,
a gender there.
yeah.
So.
Oh, fine. I would be interested to know like the gender distribution of like enterprise coaches.
Yeah, my uneducated guess right now is I would anticipate there would be more females than males.
Really? I was going to guess the opposite because I just assume men dominate everything.
Well, no, it's because you need a high amount of emotional intelligence to be a successful coach.
I think that women would be better.
Ooh, I don't know. That's debatable.
People are going to come after me after saying whatever. Between the two of us, you probably have better EQ than I do, though.
Are you calling me a girl?
Yeah. No, but this guy and other people, it's not just this one coach I'm talking about. There's plenty of people who come in guns a-blazing and they just want to like change everything for like from a good place. I know that when people do that, it's from a good place that they think they're being helpful and they want to change things and make things better. And that is nice, but it's also really annoying. And I'm like, hey, could you just like take a minute to understand what's going on and why things are like this and how you can slowly insert your good ideas rather than rocking the boat and making us flip over. That would be great. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I don't even know. Why are we even talking about this? How did we get here?
Because we were talking about open mind and all that. And then we were talking about respecting the past, which is really great.
Oh, yeah.
So my approach to coaching at the enterprise level has evolved from making minor suggestions in the beginning after observing to now figuring out a way to incorporate the decision makers down to the team to evolve their own practices. Like a coach coming in will never have all of the context of a team, even if you spend some time with the team, and then you may have a lot of context there, and you go away and you come back, you're like, well, there's some things that happened that I wasn't in on. There's now some inside jokes that I don't get, and it's only
That's so sad.
That's one of the drawbacks of being more broad as a coach, is that you miss out on the team camaraderie. That is,
I don't think we've talked about that, but I did want to just say, with like not having all of the context, I was actually just talking to a Scrum Master who got put in the role of a Scrum Master. She has no previous history of being a Scrum Master, but she's like very gung-ho and wants to learn. I think that's great. I mean, that's what you need as a Scrum Master. But she brought up the fact, and I don't think we have time today to talk about this, but I was just going to tease it out a little bit and we'll write it down to talk about it again. But she was like, I do feel like it's really hard to be a Scrum Master and coach on a team where I truly don't know what the team is doing. Like, for example, for me, I'm not really that technical. So if I were on, let's say, a network engineering team, I don't really think I would know what they're talking about on a day-to-day basis. And so she has been struggling to figure out, like, how do I help these people where I don't really understand what's going on? So maybe we can talk about some like tips and tricks to go into a team or organization essentially blind and like not really knowing anything. And how do you effectively coach that?
Oh, I think that's really important. I have observed that on several teams, and I think it's worth an actual focused talk about it.
Yeah, but we are coming up on time. We didn't get to talk through a lot about what my mom had mentioned about the training classes.
Oh yeah.
Do you have any really quick opinions? And if the answer is no, that's fine. But do you have any quick opinions about whether you have gone to training and gotten the same impression that she has about just trainers saying that it's the catch-all? Or do you feel like these days, because my mom took the training a long time ago, do you feel like these days people are more balanced, or are you not sure?
No, I agree. Even in the more recent trainings, everything is idealized, and it almost has to be, because there's pros and cons to doing it this way. The way that I'm talking about is when you go away offsite to train, you train in a controlled environment where everything is hunky-dory, everything is a utopia, in order to illustrate what you're trying to shoot for. So you're in order to illustrate how things should be. That's a pro. The con is you have no context for when you take it back to your organization. Now, if you were to do it the complete opposite, where you were to train over people's shoulder, and you need a lot more trainers, and you would be absorbed by the context, I think, a little too much, and you wouldn't understand right away the idealized state or what you're trying to shoot for. You're going to be bumping up against your limitations right then and there in your current job, which, some people might say that, yeah, that's the better way to do it. But where I work now, we have a 2-day training course that we train everybody, which is fantastic, but it's in an idealized state. And I know that that's not the most ideal way to train. So I haven't worked this out yet, but I want to break it up into an hour or two sessions over the period of multiple weeks, where you go over a concept or a practice or a set of practices. You say, this is the ideal state, but between now and the next time we meet, try this out. Try to do it on your team. And, the first part of the next time we come back, we'll talk through how it went. So it's, you take an idea and you try to implement it, and then you see how it goes. So like kind of iterative. That's my opinion.
I have like 1,000 million questions, but we are pretty much at time. I will just say that I would like to spend time talking about training because I feel like there has to be a better way to do this to help teams be successful, because I don't think the basic certification courses are really cutting it. As far as people being able to take the cert, like you are certified, you should be able to do what you need to do. And I feel like a lot of people that I know and you know have taken these classes and they come back, they're like, yeah, that was awesome. I'm totally bought in. And how do I do this? Which means that something is not correct there. So mull that over.
Yeah.
And I'll mull that over and maybe we'll generate some cool ideas. And again, if more than 2 people are listening, maybe they have some ideas, feel free to write to us, email us, message us on Instagram, whatever. Drop us a comment on YouTube. But with that, Johnny, I'm going to wrap it up if that's okay with you.
Yeah, let's wrap this up. This was fun. I do have one thing that I wanted to add in there. Just kind of like a question. Do you know anyone that like works on cell phone towers?
Personally, no.
Oh, well, it's too bad. I wish I did, because if they were getting married, the reception would be excellent.
Yo, I am done with you. I'm done. I thought this was going to be important. I thought we were going to be wrapping this up and you were going to have some words of wisdom.
It is. It is words of wisdom.
I feel dumber now. So I don't think that worked.
I thought that was excellent.
Okay, well, everybody, thanks for joining us today. Please feel free, subscribe, follow us on Instagram. You can find us at the Agile Commute. Our email address is at theagilecommute@gmail.com. We are streaming on Spotify, YouTube, all different types of places. Just look us up and feel free to reach out. We're always interested to hear from you. If you guys have questions or topics you want to hear, let us know. So otherwise, thanks everybody, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
See ya.